Okay, I'll get started. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Parthaya Pratibodhitam Bhagavata Narayanena Swayam Vyasena Kratitam Purana Munina Madhye Mahabharatam Advaitam Vridavarshinim Bhagavatim Ashtadashadhyayinim Ambatvam Anusandathami Bhagavad Gita Bhavatveshini. Namostute Vyasa Vishala Buddhe Hullara Vindayata Patra Netra Yena Tvaya Bharata Taila Purnaha Prajvalito Jnanamayah Pradipaha Prapanna Parijataya Totra Vetraikapanaye Jnanamudraya Krishnaya Geetamritaduhe Namaha Sarvadharman Parityajya Mamekam Sharanam Vraja Aham Tva Sarvapapebhyaha Mokshayishyami Ma Shuchaha. So today in chapter 3, we are going to see Arjuna's question. You know, this is just like any of our questions. Things like, for example, as I said last time, I know I want to lose weight. So why am I taking the sweets here? Or I wish I did not say this to somebody. You know, it could be anybody. Sometimes we go through these situations, you know, the words just comes out of our mouth and it's hard to take it back. And, you know, we later on think about it. I wish, you know, this never happened. And this particularly happens, you know, when we are either somebody we are close to or somebody whom we have certain judgment against, right? Why did I do this? Why did I do that? And it's the same thing. We all go through this. I'm trying to do the same thing as I'm coming here. I'm trying to keep my mouth quiet and, you know, just tolerate, go through tolerance. So these kind of questions is kind of something similar that Arjuna also asked this question. Matter of fact, this is a universal question. It just bugs all of us, you know, all the time. It's like this never-ending struggle for us. We want to say something, but we say something else. We want to do something, but we end up doing something else. We want to think only good things all the time, but some other thoughts comes to our mind, right? So that's the part we will address today. But before that, we will go through the shlokas just before that, which is today we'll take 3 shlokas because we're coming to the end of Bhagavad Gita chapter 3. So 33, 34 and 35. So shloka number 33, which is Sadrisham Cheshtate Swasyaha Prakrute Jnanavanapi Prakritim Yanti Bhutani Nigraha Kim Karishyati. So that was the question. And it's an important shloka. Does anybody have any thoughts on these this particular shloka, or how have you understood this shloka? Any thoughts on this?
Even wise man will follow his or her own nature.
Correct. But how does it reflect on me? So it says, of course, a wise man, but what is the relevance to me? What is the relevance to how I view the world? And what is the relevance to the people whom I interact with? What do you think?
Is it that everybody has their own likes and dislikes? And
Yes. So everybody has their own nature. Prakritim here says nature, right? We all say,
yes.
Oh, that is his nature. It is his nature to get angry, but we are not able to sometimes accept it, right? So everybody has their own nature. And that nature is governed by something else, which will come in the next shloka. But here he's trying to say that everybody has their own nature. So what do we have to do? We have to tolerate it, right? And that's, this is the kind of shlokas that is helping me, at least, even as I've moved here to US, from US, everything has its own place. Everybody will do the way they have to do. So India will do the way Indians have to do here, right? Now, I cannot change that right away. So that is one aspect of what the shloka is saying. The second aspect he's saying is, what can willpower do? We say, oh, I'm so strong, I can change it by my will. But then what is it that prevents even a willpower to help us? I mean, of course, we have people who participate in this huge bike marathons or even the Olympics. People, it's through sheer willpower that they are able to achieve certain targets. But then there is something else within their personality which prevents them to evolve. That is the aspect we are talking about. Yeah.
Vasanas.
Vasanas, exactly. So it is the vasanas. Each one of us have those inborn, innate vasanas. Now, can I see these vasanas? No. These vasanas are not, shown in my physical structure. It is deep within me, and it is those vasanas which prompts me to have a desire. So it is even deeper than a desire. So these vasanas create the desires, and these desires lead to my thoughts, and the thoughts then act it out. So, for example, if somebody is angry, obviously that person has a very deep, innate something in them which causes them to become angry. So, anger by itself is not a vasana. Anger is a reaction. Anger is an action. So, that deep vasanas is what this particular shloka is really saying, that is really referring to here. Now, the next part, second one, is the what you said earlier, Meena, which is the aspect which changes, right? So how do you look at this shloka now, which is Indriyasyendriyasyarthe, verse number 34. Indriyasyendriyasyarthe ragadvesha vyavastithau tayorna vashama gachet tau yasya paripantinau. So what is this shloka really trying to say? Even though I know, and I will see for chapter number 4, I'm going to see how I can simplify this meaning even further. But you can see here he's trying to say that the reason as to how these vasanas we developed. So these vasanas came to us because our five senses basically went out into the world, and then to some of them it attached itself, and with some of them it came away from it. So that is the thing. It attached itself, and some of them it came away. And because of this, over a period of time, this became so strong to us. So they are essentially the likes and dislikes. This is how we develop a like, and this is how we dislike something. I wonder how it would be in the case of Facebook. When Facebook, we have only likes all the time. Does that also create a vasana? I'm sure it does, right? But this is why we see social media is really, it's actually, speaking of this and seeing the relation of it to today's world, how many of you are familiar with this term called imposter syndrome? The imposter syndrome. This is one of the kind of a malady, I would say, which is affecting many of our teens. What is that? Yeah, go ahead. Somebody wanted to say something? Okay. So, for example, the imposter syndrome is one of them, which is because they say, this is only one of the theories as to how this imposter syndrome, and you can Google it and you can try to learn about it, is that they feel that the social media creates a lot of these aspect of this imposter syndrome, which affects our teens, which leads to many times our teens not having that much of confidence in who they are. So the likes for Facebook or anywhere, comparing with somebody else, all that. So in that sense, this is an important shloka as to recognizing that don't come under the influence of the likes and dislikes of our own self. So same thing as I look at it for myself when I'm here in India, I may like certain things to be done a certain way. That is my like. That is my vasana. But I cannot expect that like to influence me. I have to just accept it the way it is. And in that sense, it will help me to move forward spiritually also, and even to get my work done, right? So, which is amazing. As I said, I had this internet, I wanted to set up my router here. I did not have a router, so I set this up. And but before my Bhagavad Gita class, which is what my most important thing was, I was praying that I will get it, and it happened. So I should be happy, right? So that is, if I just let it go to the universe, it will take care of it by itself. So that is the idea of how not to allow likes and dislikes to influence my own judgment. The more and more I allow it, that is what creates these vasanas, and that is the thing. So any thoughts on that further? Okay, let's move on to the next one. We discussed
Sunitha ji, Shiva
yeah,
here.
please. Go ahead.
So Sunitha ji, question on vasanas.
Yes.
Since they are so deep and such a integral part of one's identity, right? How do you even, well, you have vasanas, but how do you become aware of that prism through which you see the world?
Very good question. Your question is, how do I even know that I have these likes and dislikes, right? That prism, as you mentioned. And Shiva, by the way, it's so wonderful to hear your voice. Thank you for joining in.
Happy to be back.
So, very good question. The thing is, the only way we can understand this is, suppose I'm in a situation where I find that I'm getting overly agitated, overly stressed, overly concerned, okay? Then that is telling me to step back a little bit, and we can use the Western way of counting 1 to 10, for example, and really understand, why am I getting agitated? simple example, suppose my daughters did not come home at the time that she said she was going to come. Now that automatically indicates that, I have really an overall attachment towards my own children, and my expectation is more than what really my true concern is. Now, that doesn't mean that I shouldn't do anything about it. Of course, I can text her or anything, but that is just as a simple example to show how the concern for us leads us to that. So that is a time to just step back and see really what is my like at that point? What is it that I have nurtured too much? Or an example of, I'm at work and, I have an important position, and I find that I need everything to be done exactly the way I want it to be done. But this is again a strong attachment to how I want it to be done. Now, can I step back a little bit and see where the other employees' positive strength comes from? So this is just the way of looking at it that way. Any other thoughts from anyone on this one? This is a good, very important shloka, and Shiva asked a very good question here. So this is essentially to watch ourselves. And I remember Pradeep is here. So Pradeep used to always say this, which is watch your reaction, not your action. So the reaction is more important than the action itself. And I remember that from our Bhagavad Gita classes, reaction to anything is actually more critical, right? Pradeep, I mean, anything to say that? Are you, Pradeep?
No.
Yeah, right, Pradeep? So you
Yeah,
agree?
I agree. Thanks.
No, I just wanted to bring that up. The reaction is really more critical on many of things that we need to watch out. And that determines actually our action. Okay. So the 35th shloka is again going, so maybe this is the thing to prevent something happening. So Shiva, your question is, how do I recognize my prism? But this shloka is addressing, how do you get over it? How do I reduce my dependence on likes and dislikes? So this shloka basically says is just focus on what your skills are and what is your duty. Just focus on what is your duty. And simple things I always think about it is, if I'm aligned with my boss as a team, in a team, my boss says, this is what you're supposed to do. And of course, the question will always come, how do I know that he's giving me the right thing to do, right? Now, assuming that he's giving you the right objectives and I follow it, instead of taking something else, which is something which looks, and my team member's duty, which looks even better than that, and if I take that up, then that's not a good thing for me. So that is what the shloka is saying. So if I focus on what I'm supposed to do, automatically that will take care of my likes and dislikes. Now, how does that happen? Suppose, I'm in this project of inputting data into a computer. I've been told to do that. That is my duty, and I'm good at it. So now if I try to think about the fact that, oh my God, this is so boring, this is too tiring. I'm already deviating from my duty from that point of view. That's a kind of a dislike that I'm taking. So that's that aspect which he's trying to address in the shloka, which is Shreyan Swadharmo Vigunaha Paradharmat Swanushtitat. My duty is better than somebody else's, even though the other persons might look very glamorous. And he says Swadharme Nidhanam Shreyaha Paradharmat Bhayavahaha, because I have no idea where the other person's duty may take me to. Let me just focus on what mine is. So then Arjuna's question was, Athakena prayuktoyam papam charati purushaha anichchanapi bhashneya balat iva niyojitaha. So he's asking, so then Krishna, so tell me, if I know what is my nature and everything, I want to ask you something deeper. This is the one that, I started the lecture with saying that ultimately, then what is it that really I tend to do things which I regret later? So that's this aspect. He's saying, what is it that I do which makes me regret later? He calls that as papam or sin. And then he says, it seems like it's like a huge force. There is somebody in my head which is telling me that, do this, do this. And so I'm okay, but there's something else in my head which is making me do this. And it's so forceful. Balat iva niyojitaha. That force is commanding me to do all these things. Tell me, what is that? Arjuna is asking. So we know that in our Hinduism, we don't think that that we commit sins, or in the sense, the sin is something that will lead us to hell, for example, and punyam, it will lead us to heaven. We believe that sins or punyam or papam is something that we are the ones who are committing it. So since we are committing it, we can actually get rid of it also, because we never really had this before, but somehow we did it. So we can also take care of it. So that's the dynamism really of Hinduism. It tells us that your destiny is in your hands. You can change yourself. Okay. So, and the way Krishna is you will see he'll try to say about what is sin and what is papam. But sin, if we look at it, is something which takes us away from God, away from looking at, if I look at the whole universe as Ishvara principle, and if I'm doing any harm to the environment in any way possible, whether I'm littering the street or I'm saying negative things to anybody, all that is papam, because I'm actually hurting the environment. I'm taking myself away from God. Punyam, on the other hand, is when I'm helping people, when I really consider God is everywhere. So that is punyam. So this is how beautifully you can look at punyam and papam. So now we have the shloka coming up where Sri Krishna is now addressing Arjuna. So this is only the second question in this entire third chapter that Arjuna is asking Krishna. So I have a question for all of you now. Do you remember what was Arjuna's first question to Lord Krishna in this chapter?
Why do I have to fight?
Why do I have to fight? Not really. No, that wasn't the question. You can look up your book if you want. It was actually the very first shloka of the third chapter of Bhagavad Gita.
Yeah, he asked that if knowledge is superior to action, then why do I have to fight? Why do I have to
Right.
fight?
Okay, good. Sorry, Meena. So your question was partly right. So you get 50 marks for it, 50%. So you're right.
I have another question, Sunitha. Sorry to interrupt. So you said that Papa Karyam and Punya Karyam. So do you think those are also considered as people who do, Papa Karyam and Punya Karyam? So is that also considered as a karma?
Is that as karma? Yes, definitely. So when you look at karma or action, so karma can be defined in many ways, right? So karma can be defined as action. Karma can be defined as also things which are a resultant of papa and punya. Okay, why, as to the reason why, something which I have to go through it, correct? And I think, Meena, that's how you're referring to, is that I have to go through this karma because of my papa and punya. That is absolutely correct. So this punya and papa is, so if I do something bad to somebody, for sure it's going to come back to me in some way, and I have to deal with it. And that is the karma for sure.
Thank you.
So now we have so in the first question we have Jayasi Chet Karmanaste Mata Buddhim Janardana Tatkim Karmani Goremam Niyojeti Keshava. That was the first question, which is, why is it that I have to fight? Because you are telling me that knowledge is superior to action, right? That was the first question that Arjuna had asked. Now we have actually, after Krishna spoke for about almost 35 shlokas here, we have Krishna now addressing the question of sin. What is it that makes people do what they do? So in the Bhashya of Shankaracharya, he actually defines who is Bhagavan, okay? Because the shloka starts with Bhagavan Uvacha. So I thought it might be a little educational for you also to know the definition of really what Bhagavan means, the word Bhagavan, or who is God. Because I think this is an important aspect even for our children sometimes to understand, is God really somebody who's out in the heavens, somebody who is, who I can never see and everything. So the two definitions that Shankaracharya has from Vishnu Purana really addresses those two. So let us see that. So Bhagavan is essentially the one who has Bhaga. Bhaga means the virtues, and he has the six-fold virtues in absolute measure, the highest amount that you can think of, he has that. So Bhagaha Asya Asti Iti Bhagavan. So this is a definition. Asya Asti Iti Bhagavan. So Bhagavan is that person who has the Bhagaha. The one who has Bhagaha is called Bhagavan. And what are those six Bhagas? It is Aishwarasya, Samagrasya, Viryasya, Yashasaha, Shriyaha, Jnana Vairagya Yogyashchaiva, Kshanam Bhaga Itirana. That is this. Aishwarasya Samagrasya, Viryasya Yashasaha, Shriyaha, Jnana Vairagya Yogyashchaiva, Kshanam Bhaga Itirana. So he has knowledge, which is Jnanam, total dispassion, Vairagya, complete dispassion, Vairagyam. And then he has a capacity to create, sustain, and resolve. Then he has Virya. He has absolute, that is the power, the Virya. Then Yashasaha, he has fame. And then he has Shriyaha, he has the entire wealth. And he has Aishwarya, which is the lordship. So that is Bhagavan. So Bhagavan has these six qualities. And now we have to question, do we have those qualities? And do we have any claim to any of this? So, basically he has that jnanam which allows him to be who he is. So he's totally free of all ignorance. And such a person, has this passion because he has everything. So what does he really need, right? So he has complete vairagya. Then he is full of, virya. He has absolute power to create, sustain, and everything. And then he has fame, yashasaha. He's totally, he's absolutely the Almighty. He has fame. And then he has actually Shriyaha, total wealth. So that is the thing. And he is the total Lord of everything. So that is Aishwarya, which is overlordship. So this is one meaning. And the other meaning is Utpattim Pralayam Chaiva, Bhutanam Agatim Gatim, Vetim Vidyam Avidyam Cha, Sa Vachyo Bhagavan iti. So one who understands Utpattim. Utpattim means a creation. Pralayam, which is dissolution. Bhutanam, the appearance and disappearance of beings. Bhutanam mean beings. Agatim. Agatim means coming. Gatim is going. So Gatim means going. Agatim, which is the opposite of going, which is coming. So that is Agatim, Gatim. Veti, Vidya and Avidya. Vidya is knowledge. Avidya is Maya. Okay. Yash cha Vacho Bhagavan iti. So that is a person who's called Bhagavan. So again, just, to give an example, to give you really what is the quality of that God. What is a quality? Shankaracharya in the chapter 3, in this particular thing, he gives it. So I thought I'll just mention it because it's simple. And many of you are students of Sanskrit. You'll be able to understand how simple the definition is. So let's chant the shloka, which is 37. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Kaama Esha Krodha Esha Rajo Guna Samudbhavaha Mahashano Mahapapma Vidyenam Iha Vairinam Kaama Esha Krodha Esha Rajo Guna Samudbhavaha Mahashano Mahapapma Vidyenamiha Vairinam. So Bhagavan Shri Krishna is saying, so what is it, to answer his question, what is it because of which a person engages in sin? Correct? That was the question, the third, Prayuktoyam. That was the question. He says it is Kamaha, desire. And it is also Krodha, it is anger, which is arising out of Rajoguna. So it is both desire and anger is coming out of Rajoguna. Samudbhavaha are originating from Rajoguna. So one way to understand this part is you can say that both Kama and Krodha is coming out of Rajas. But another way to look at it also is that because of this, the Rajas, the quality of Rajas, as we have talked before, there are three qualities, Sattva, Rajas and Tamas. So how does Rajas really increase is because of the high amount of desires and the high amount of the passion. You can take Krodha also as extreme passion. So both of this leads to high amount of this Kama and Krodha. Now, what does it happen because of that? So this leads to Mahashanaha, and which is again destruction, you can say, and Mahapapma, it leads to all the sin, because that was a question. So these two leads to that high amount, finally a destruction of a person, finally it leads to sin. Vidhi means know it, that these two are the enemies. It will really eat you up in your lifetime. So that is the aspect, which is their Vairi, which is enemy number one. And because of this, your progress can be obstructed. So that is the thing. So we see that this two are really the biggest aspects here. Even for a spiritual seeker, if you look at it, these two are the ones which really pulls a person down. Now, somebody may say, but, I have seen, people who are realized masters, they get angry too. So how do you say that is okay? Well, in the case of realized masters, many times they have to show the aspect of anger. So when they show that aspect of anger, people react to it, because many times people really react to things when you sort of, increase your voice or you try to tell them something which will shake them up, right? It's like even with our children, if I don't want them to go close to fire, or if I want to really warn them of dire consequences, I have to be a little angry, right? So that is the Krodha in the case of realized masters. But here, Lord Krishna is trying to show that how these two are the enemies. Now, is desire and anger two different things? No, not really. They both are actually the same thing. So, for example, when I have a strong desire to get something, I'm going to the store, I'm going to Myers, I'm going to go and buy it. I really need this ice cream or something. It's in the evening. I know it's evening for you there, and I know it's cold and you're not really going to go for an ice cream. But let's assume that, you want to get a dessert after this class is over, and you go there, it's already late, but somebody cuts you out. You're driving and somebody just comes into your lane. There's a certain amount of anger at that point, right? So desire, when it is obstructed, is actually anger. So in a sense, both Kaama and Krodha are nothing but just one. And this desire is actually the root for many things. And later, of course, Krishna will expand on this even more to say Kaama, Krodha, and Lobha. So all these things, we will come to it. But one thing also to keep in mind here is, does that mean that a desire for God, desire to reach the feet of Krishna, for example, is that also bad? No, that is not bad. That is really divinizing my desire. So, for example, if I have a desire for something, and in Srimad Bhagavatam, there is so much beautiful examples about divinizing a desire. So that is not bad at all. So desire for God is not a worldly desire. And because you're desiring for God, who is the ultimate one. So that is not bad at all. And another thing to keep in mind is the root of desire is ultimately in ignorance, because I have forgotten really my own true nature and I've taken myself something else. And because I've taken myself something else and I keep constantly going for something which is for that desire, then that is the desire we are talking about here. So just as an example, there's actually quite a few examples you can think of about how this desire is like a fire, like, for example, in a fire, in order to keep it ablaze, I keep on putting ghee, correct? In order to increase the intensity of fire. So desire is also like that. So many times we think, I'm just going to get this one thing and I'll be okay with it. This is the last time I'm going for it. Well, that is definitely not the way to get rid of a desire. Desires can never be quenched by satisfying them. So that is the aspect of desire. And in Bhajagovindam, I think Shiva, you will remember this, the shloka, which is 26, which says, Kamam Krodham Lobham Moham Tyaktvatmanam Bhavaya Koham Atma Jnana Vihina Mudhaha Te Pachyante Narakani Gudaha. So, Shankaracharya in Bhajagovindam talks about how the desire, anger, greed, etc. are really the ones who are the obstructions for us. But ultimately, for all of them, he also says this Kaama, Krodha, Lobha, and Moha is, it starts with desire. So this is the kind of the downfall, if you will. So desire, is dependent on something. And then anger comes when the desire is obstructed. Whereas Lobha comes when desire is fulfilled. So greed, when you fulfill it, it leads to wanting more and more of the same thing. And when you go on fulfilling that, and when you succumb to that desire, then what happens is it takes me more and more away from really what my true nature is. And that desire causes an obstruction. And because of the obstruction, I find that I lose my ability to think. And Swami Chimananda gives a beautiful example. He says about, imagine that, you've got this brand new car and you're driving up, a mountain, and you're the only one on this road, and it's so dark, and suddenly what happens in one of the turns, the headlights, it conks out. So you can imagine the predicament you are in now. It's dark, you don't know what's going to happen. Are there going to be some bears out there? Is there another car going to come from the opposite side? All these things are happening, right? And the headlights have conked out, and you are just in quandary. You get very agitated, and you don't know what to do. One small turn, and you could just go down that whole mountain, right? So that's how our life is. These headlights are really the intellect, and the darkness that you see is this Kaama, which is constantly obstructing us. And this desires, when it gets thicker and thicker, it's that darkness which is much thicker, and it just takes you down, spirally down. If you don't use those headlights, that knowledge, which is the light, that headlights are important to make us think. So that is the aspect which this Kaama is such an important thing which takes us down. And this Kaama is something, unfortunately, again, taking a shloka from Bhaja Govindam. It's amazing. So many of you who attended Bhaja Govindam are here. So you can relate to this shloka also, which is Balastavat Krida Saktaha, Tarunastavat Taruni Saktaha, Vriddhastavata Chinta Saktaha, Parame Brahmani Kopina Saktaha. This desire, it is there all throughout our lives. In childhood, we have a desire for toys. In the youth, we have desire for the opposite sex. In the old age, we don't have anything else to worry about, but we want to worry about worry. So that is the aspect here. Ultimately, nobody worries, nobody has time for God. Nobody has the aspect of focusing on God. We all have the time, we have the energy, but we don't do that. So that Shankaracharya brings up this question here. So now then, I'm sure some of you must be thinking, what does that mean? So should I not have desires at all? Can life really work without any desires? So I want to throw that question up to you. What do you think? Is it really possible to work in the world without the desires? Like I showed you already, we have desires at different times. Any thoughts?
Sunitha, don't we need desires to set goals?
It's like
Yes.
motivation also, no? Some sort of
Yes.
motivation.
Uh-huh.
So you must have desires, but they should be good. The thoughts should be good behind it. Otherwise, there cannot be action. And life cannot be without action. We have to live, we have to act and take responsibilities. Only thing, our desires should be good. It shouldn't hurt others. It shouldn't damage the society or family or anything. It should move towards spirituality. That is also good desire. So there has to be desires. You can't live without desires.
Correct. Thank you, Amma. You're right. So we cannot live without. So to Pradeep's question and tying that with what Amma just said, yes, it is only because of desire that we have taken this birth. Going to Meena, what she said, this karma, we have come here in this world to fulfill that desire. Now, how do I convert that into a goal? And are goals bad? So goals by itself is necessary in life, but the goals should not be for the three most things which we always focus on. The three things which, objects, okay? I need all these objects. I need, iPhone 13 just came out. Okay, let me just immediately go to the store and get the iPhone 13, for example. I know I'm somebody in Apple is going to be mad at me for saying this, because it's going to hurt the business or whatever. But the point about it is to recognize why I'm buying the iPhone 13, right? So that's the aspect of objects. So I need to have a goal of living my life in such a way that I'm of service to the people. Once I have that as a goal, then what happens is anything I do will help that goal. So it is just a question of not to have a goal to have like a lot of money for myself, lot of, basically I was thinking of the three things, maybe, the best food in the world, the best house in the world, for example. The question is, how can I use that towards helping the society? Simple things like, again, because Geeta and Pratibha, that I'm saying this, they offered their house, they built a beautiful basement, and they said, let's use this for the study group, for example. I mean, look at, so how can I really I can have the goal of building a house or anything, but how can I make it available? How can I use it in, helping people, for example? So that's the whole idea of having the goal, just to take the goal beyond what is in it for me to what is in it that can help more people. I don't know if that helps, Pradeep, but so life can work without desires. Like, for example, all the Mahatmas, all the Swamis, for example, they also have a desire, but their desire is Loka Sangraha. Loka Sangraha, which is helping people in whatever way possible. And they help out by Karma Yoga, by some people do by Jnana Yoga, by helping, appealing to the intellect, by helping people to donate, for example, food, so many different ways. So it is possible that way. So the next shloka, which is coming up 38th, we have 3 examples which really shows the type of desires. So we talked about the desires, this is what we are. So let us see what the 3 desires are. Dhume navriyate vahnihi, dhume navriyate vahnihi, yatha darsho malena cha, yatha darsho malena cha, yathol benavrito garbha, yathol benavrito garbha, tatha tene damavritam, tatha tene damavritam, dhume navriyate vahnihi, yatha darsho malena cha, yathol benavrito garbha, tatha tene damavritam. So, just as fire enveloped by smoke, or a mirror which is covered by dust, or an embryo or a fetus which is covered by the womb, so too this is enveloped by that. So that is the idea. Dhuma means smoke, avrita, which is covering, vahni, which is fire, yatha, so just like that, and just like adarshaha, mirror. If you look up easy Sanskrit, a lot of these words are already there. Mala, which is dirt, and then ulba, which is womb, avrita again covers, garbha, which is the fetus. So too, this is covered by that. So here he's trying to show what is this and what is that. And So again, simple examples, we know that, just like how a drunken fool, for example, he drives a car at 60 miles an hour and he goes towards a tree, and then what happens? He hits it. And when he's taken to the hospital, and then if you were to ask him, what happened? And, the only thing he's going to say is, what? The tree did not move out of my way here. And I did not, I was doing okay, but the tree came in my path, right? So that's how this desire is. This desire is so strong, and it can be in different, levels. And that is what these three things are showing us. Three different ways the desires really affect us. So fire, which is covered by smoke, the mirror, which is covered by dust, and the fetus covered by the womb. So, the fire, for example, you're enjoying this in the winter time, you suppose you decide to have the fire in your pit, and you see that the smoke, as soon as you light the fire, there's a little bit of smoke there, right? Now, this smoke, you can actually remove it very easily. You just put a fan or something close by, and you can actually remove the smoke out. And pretty soon you're going to see that orange amber, aspect of the flame itself. And it's so beautiful. You can just enjoy it sitting in your backyard on the pit and do that, right? It takes hardly any effort. All you have to do is bring a fan. Now, that's not the case with the mirror. If there is a thick layer of dust, and again, believe me, now that I'm in India, this is the first thing we all notice, right? The dust, and this just affects you immediately. So what do? You take a rag and you start cleaning it and see how you can remove it. You go up, down, clockwise, anti-clockwise, take a little bit of liquid, whatever. It takes a lot of effort to take the dust out, which hasn't been cleaned for months or even years, right? But you can do it given a matter of time. But now let's take the fetus, which is covered by the womb. Now, this one, you have to give it time, right? You have to wait for at least 9 months and 9 years. I'm sorry, 9 months, not 9 years, 9 months. And Swami Chinmayananda, actually, he says, he comes up with 9 months and 9 days. And I don't know, I have to look up some scientific thing to say, is it really 9 months and 9 days? But he says, during that time, how much effort is there, for the father to take care of the mother, make sure she massages her feet or, her, and really so there is a lot of effort with all these three things, all these three in this case. So 3 different examples, 3 different amounts of effort that is given here. So I want to ask all of you, what is your feeling about this thing? What is this trying to signify? Any thoughts on this? Why 3 different examples, and why this amount of effort?
One is simpler to remove.
Yes.
The other one is a little difficult. The third one is
What is that?
Yeah. Any other thoughts?
Sattvic, Tamasic, and Sattvic, Rajvik, and Tamasic desires.
Exactly. So which one is Sattvic?
The first one.
by smoke.
The first
fire.
one, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So the first one is Sattvic desire. The smoke again represents the desire. It's very Sattvic. And in the second one, you have the dust, which is the Rajasic desires. And the third one is the Tamasic desires, really gross desires, right? So can somebody give me some examples of what would be a Sattvic desire, what would be a Rajasic and Tamasic desire? So let me give you Tamasic desire for sure. Tamasic would be really bad, like drugs or alcohol or, those kind of things. It can also be, of course, the ability to lie too much in businesses, for example, cheating, really bad cheating, all that. That could be that.
When we say it as a desire, it may be more habit.
Yeah, but it is an extreme. Addiction is a desire. They are extreme. Yeah, so addictions are desires that way.
Like Rajasic could be something like you want to be better at something, you want to be famous, like something like you really want.
Yeah,
you know,
so Rajasic desires, something where only I have to win. So I put a lot of effort in, but only I have to win. I have to become famous, or I have to earn millions of dollars so that people can look at me, or I want to get into the Fortune 500. All those things are very Rajasic desires. But if you do it with a sattvic intention, that's different. And we can come to that at some point in the 4th chapter. Again, we'll be coming into it. So we'll do that. And sattvic desires, what do you think? Like even attending Bhagavad Gita. Bhagavad Gita thing is a sattvic desire. And doing japa, doing meditation, helping out the community, all that is sattvic desires. Okay, so let's at least, I know it is already 3 minutes to this. We will chant the shloka and then we will come to it. So if you look at another beautiful, something which I want to point out, in each one of them, you see there is something which is covering it, right? It is a fire which is covered by smoke, mirror covered by dust, and the feet is covered by the womb. So in all three, it is not as if we are creating something. It was already there. So fire was already there, mirror was already there, fetus was already there, except there was something covering it which needs to be removed, correct? So in shloka number 39, we are going to talk about that covering, the removal of the covering, okay? And what is really the thing which is in there. So I'll chant the shloka and we'll go into detail, a little more detail next time, but it's another 2-3 shlokas, so that's why I just wanted to cover this aspect. Avritam jnanametena, Avritam jnanametena, Jnanino nitya vairina, Jnanino nitya vairina, Kamarupena kaunteya, Kamarupena kaunteya, Dushpurena nalena cha, Dushpurena nalena cha. So Avritam, that covering which is there, is actually, it's covering wisdom. So enveloped is wisdom. So when you saw that this and that, which was referring to in the previous shloka, he's saying Avritam covered, this enveloped is wisdom. By this is the constant enemy of the wise, that is desire, which is covering the wisdom. In all these cases, the wisdom we all have, but the desire also we have. The desire is the one which is covering the wisdom. So Kaama Rupena Kaunteya, that is, it is in the form, that covering is in the form of desire, and it is as unappeasable as fire. Anala is the word for fire, and it is Dushpurena, it is so impossible. It is impossible, it is insatiable like the fire. It's just like forest fires. In California, we see the forest fires. All it needs is just one spark, and pretty soon the entire place is covered by fire, right? So that's how strong this desire is. It can be that amount of insatiable fire. So from here, that's basically all he's saying. We'll have a little bit of discussion on this and we'll move on to 40, 41 and finish off next week. So we'll finish this. Sarve bhavantu sukhinah, sarve santu niramayaha, sarve bhadrani pashyantu, ma kaschid dukkha bhag bhaved. Om shanti shanti shantihi. Om purnamadav purnamidam purnat purnamudachyate, purnasya purnamadaya purnameva vashishyate. Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Shri Guru Namaha Harihi Om. Thank you, everyone. It's so wonderful to see all of you. Really
Hari Om,
appreciate
thank you so much, Sunitha ji.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Hari Om, Sunitha ji.
Yeah,
Thank
Hari
you.
Om,
Hari Om,
thank you.
Shiva, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hari Om Madhuri. Hari Om Vijay.
Thank
Hari
you.
Om.
Thank you.
Avinash.
Hari Om, thank you.
Hari Om.
Hari Om.
Bye, Sunitha.
Goodbye. Was the reception okay today?
Yes.
Yeah, that's good.
Very good.
But there was a little bit of break at one point, I remember, right?
Only for a brief minute. That's
Yeah,
brief.
but it was very clear.
Half a minute.
The lighting is clear. I think the light is shining on my eyes though, right? Is it causing a problem?
It's good. Not
Oh, Sunitha ji, one small suggestion. As soon as you finish, you need to end the click the three
Please.
dots